And welcome to Gamers on Game. I've got the great pleasure of speaking with Heather Logas. Daniel Christopher's still here in the studio just to give Heather some moral support. Heather, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure. You've been through quite a transition, haven't you? Several.
Which one?
So you also,
Many.
You are also a graduating Dynamite student. You are second year MFA, and you will be in the exhibition. I've got what's on your mind, and you will be doing an installation there called Game Reality Workshops.
Yes.
And there's a series of live art game making.
Yes.
I can't wait. And when do I have to do this? I have to go March 28th and 29th. Is it all going to be taking place during that exhibition in the dark?
Yeah, it'll be taking place during the exhibition. If you go other times that are not on the weekends, there'll still be an installation there that you can interact with, and you can either by yourself or with your friends collaborate to make games on your own. But I will be hosting live game making events on the weekend days that the show is open. And
that's May 3rd through 6th, and the first weekend is April 28th and 29th. And I assume you're going to have a big, some special workshop for the reception, which will be May 4th, 5:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Yeah, there will be a workshop at the reception as well. I'm not sure what time it'll start, though.
Right. Do you have a website or anything that people could go to and get more information?
Check the schedule. I don't currently have anything like that up. What I will probably do is put something on my DANM website so that people can see what the schedule is for the events.
So you just go to danm.org and... Is it danm.org? I believe so.
Our website.
DANM and
danm.ucsc.edu.
danm.ucsc.edu, and then under there in the menus there'll be people, and you are a current second year, Heather Logas. And Heather, I find this fascinating, being a wannabe game maker myself. I have so many ideas for games, I can't tell you. And so this sounds so empowering to me.
That's kind of the purpose of it. So I've been working as a professional game designer since 2004, and one thing that I've have noticed is that everybody has at least one idea for a game, sometimes many, often many, actually. But game making itself is this sort of mysterious process, and I think that it's very important, especially given the content that is in many of the commercial games, and the fact that people have, there are groups of people who have serious problems with some of the content in commercial games, that it's important for people to be able to get to make their own games, make their own content that people can play with. And I think that it's important, just as games in general are, currently a huge deal. They're becoming more prevalent as an art medium. And
there's an art exhibit in the Smithsonian that just opened for video games.
Right.
Which none of the Rockstar videos were represented. As I heard, it was like a big, as far as, I don't know, but it's interesting what they chose to put in the exhibition.
Right.
That was probably for school children and all ages.
Right.
Even some older people would get pretty offended by some of the stuff that you'd find in some of the Rockstar games.
Yeah, definitely. And and the thing about games too is that they're not only a participatory medium, but they're also a role-based medium. So when you play a game, you are taking on a role, and sometimes that role is of something fairly destructive, such as in the Rockstar games and many other games. So it's important that people become discerning consumers of games, and also get their own hands dirty making games and creating their own content, so that they really gain a deeper understanding of how games work, and that there are alternatives to making some of these games that they find distasteful for whatever reason.
Heather Logas is here on Gamers on Game, and you are listening to KZSC Santa Cruz. Heather, how do you teach somebody to make games? What's kind of your system or your platform?
Well, there are a lot of different platforms, I guess. What I'm doing for the MFA show is there will be a large blank board, essentially, and pieces available to create the games with. And what I'm doing for that particular installation is I'm having a set of cards with themes on them that will direct people in how they're going to make the games thematically. The themes that I'm choosing for the show are all based on Fluxus scores or instruction pieces. So,
whoa, Fluxus. What is Fluxus? Would that happen to be some kind of art collaborative group from the late 60s?
Yes, it would be, as a matter of fact. You're continuing in some forms to this day.
And so these are, you're using participatory works of Fluxus artists with the new games movement.
Right. So,
and the Fluxus, they were really, they did lots of kind of happening type things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yoko Ono being one of the big known Fluxus artists, cutting piece, people come up, cut stuff off of her shirts or clothes. But they also would do these Fluxus boxes and these like kind of kits of entering the art world, creating your own art world.
Right.
And so this is how you're approaching your entering the game bubble. They like to say sometimes.
The bubble, right.
The game theory. But that bubble is porous. When does reality start? When does the game? You know that. But we won't go there. And so, Heather Logas, what are these different elements? You got the themes. What are the elements?
The elements of like
that
the pieces.
The pieces that you could put on the board.
So for this particular piece, I'm keeping things very
simple.
Kind of simple. Yeah, simple and very sort of open-ended as possible. So the board itself is just blank. It's just white. It's actually a magnetic whiteboard. There are dry erase markers to draw on the board, and there are magnetic tiles that can be put down that are also blank that you can also write on with the whiteboard markers. There will be a spinner that is also blank that can be written on with the whiteboard markers. Some sort of playing pieces.
So that's for chance, the spinner.
Yeah. Spinners for chance.
All right. So
and some kind of tokens. But they, all the pieces, whether or not people want to use them is up to whoever's making the game.
Right. So you're going to help them as a game developer, an experienced professional. You're going to help them kind of understand how do you approach making a game? Like you got this idea. All right, what do I do next?
So, I think that's part of what's interesting to me, actually, is how different people are going to go about it. To me, it's sort of a grand experiment, like taking people who do not necessarily have experience making games and seeing what they do when you give them these, put this stuff out. I think that, for me, I lean heavily on research. So if I start, let's say, with a theme, or I have an idea for a game mechanic that I'm really interested in,
game mechanic?
Oh, game mechanic being like the rules that the game works by, which in a board game or something like that is, the rules how to play, and the in a digital game would be like the code they're coded in, but they're the rules by which the game works. So if I have something in particular that I'm interested in, the first thing I do is look at other games that have used similar themes or similar approaches, and I think about kind of what's the most important thing about this game. What is the game trying to convey, and how can I best convey that? Not only through the content, like the aesthetic content, but also through the rules themselves.
Right. See, this is where games and art collide, I think, because you're in a way, what's the word? Daniel, what do you think? you're allowing this questioning that requires a form. So the question has a different form depending on what that question is, right? And so the game would have a different form depending on what's the thrust of that game, what's driving the game, right? I think kind of applies to both art making and game making.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me about games as art specifically is that what sets them apart from other art forms is that the rules are really how the meaning is conveyed. By playing the game, that is how, it's not just about what the board looks like or what the playing pieces look like, although that's also important, but actually how the game mechanics themselves convey meaning is what's really interesting to me.
So we were just playing Monopoly, which is one of those games that you always have to go back and read the directions. It doesn't matter how many times I've played this game, 1,000,000 times, maybe not 1,000,000, but
and most
lot.
people play it wrong, by the way.
Right,
most people do not play it by the rules.
And you go, what's in the rules? What's in the rules?
Different things.
The rules is teaching you how to be a good landlord, right?
Yeah.
How to be a capitalist, how to buy up all the property and then,
zero sum, make everyone around you in anguish.
Exactly. And you win.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just a really great example of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The rules give the meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, what's the meaning of Monopoly? How to be a capitalist.
Right.
How to be a robber baron.
Right. So the work that I've been doing during my time here in DANM has been reversing those cultural narratives that are embedded in the rule sets of these games.
Oh, it's fascinating. Heather Logas, why did you come to DANM?
Why did I come to DANM? So I came to DANM for a number of reasons. One of which was, probably the main one was that I'm interested in pursuing a career in academia.
That's the way.
Yeah, so I was a professional game designer. Well, I still am a professional game designer, but I worked in a couple different companies for several years, and then I worked as a freelance game designer for 2 or 3 years. But I'm really interested in teaching. I'm really interested in education, and I'm really interested in the kind of projects that are hard to find time for when you are, working in the commercial game industry.
And having kids?
And having kids, right. Yes.
So that's an interesting thing that you bring up. Getting your MFA is what they call a terminal degree,
right?
Which might be changing in the next few years because there are PhDs that are being given out into art studio. They're very far and few.
Yeah, but I've brought this concern up with certain people, and they say not to worry about it. So.
Yeah, I don't think we need to worry about it. But the thing is, if you get your MFA, you can teach in college.
Right, in certain programs.
Right.
Like in the arts.
Right.
You can
teach. It's an art, yeah.
But, so there are a number of schools that offer game design programs that accept MFAs that I've been applying for.
I don't know if UCSC is accepting MFA programmers, but this is a school where we have game design, and there is a lot of cross-disciplinary makings. Have you worked at all with the games and playable media? Is that part of your project group? Or? Right, yeah, so I'm in the Games and Playable Media project group. And at UC Santa Cruz, one thing that's interesting is that there's a couple different ways to approach games. There's the MFA through DANM, where you can be part of the Playable Media group. There's also the Expressive Intelligence Studio, which actually I'm a part of, but it's mostly PhD students. So there's a PhD in computer science that you can get, and they are very focused on AI and artificial intelligence,
and lots of really interesting ways to go about creating content for games procedurally, and they do lots of other things too, but that's kind of the main thrust. And then there's also an undergraduate program
Right.
which is
part of the engineering
which is
department.
part of engineering, which is computer science with an emphasis in game design.
And this is very unique. When you say when you're out there looking for your next job, Heather, what we've got here at UCS is pretty amazing. When you say,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
and so where are you finding the other game design opportunities
Well, it's
for
interesting.
teaching?
Sure. Well, what's interesting is that they're really just exploding all over the place.
Right.
When I graduated, so I got a master's science in at Georgia Tech. I graduated there in 2004, and that was I did a gaming emphasis there.
This is your undergrad? No, master's.
No.
I'm sorry.
It was a master's.
Master's in science.
Master's of science. So
Was it in engineering?
it was information design and technology, which they've recently changed to just digital media, I think. So, but
That's interesting. Digital media MS, and you're getting now MFA.
right. Yeah, and you know, they're very different programs in terms of what they emphasize. But at that time, there were not a lot of schools with any sort of gaming program. There were a number of, what you might call trade schools for games, where you go and you do this intense program and you learn specifically game programming or game art, but it's very focused on this one part of the discipline. A sub-discipline maybe. And now there are a number of big universities that have programs, and they are, and it's growing. You know, many of the schools that I've applied for jobs at are schools where they are just starting a games program, or they want to build a lab, or so. It's very an exciting time.
Hey, all the power to you, baby. I wish you the best. I think that it's great what you're doing, and so empowering. I can't wait to be a part of both of your installations, but specifically we're talking about you, Heather Logas. The name is Game Reality Workshops. Everybody's invited April 28th and 29th, and then May 3rd through 6th. The big reception Friday, May 4th, 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Come make your own game. Bring the family, bring your friends, and Heather will lead us to a game that we ourselves have made. Thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you to Daniel, Christopher. I wish everybody a great day. Thanks so much for listening. If you missed any part of the show, please feel free to go to artistonart.com and gamersongame.com, and stay tuned for Unfiltered Camels. Everybody have a great day, and make a game. Hey, why not?
Thank you very much.